Hey, happy OONSDAY, guys. I'm in another site in my state of Wisconsin that has Indian burial mounds, the effigy mounds in the shapes of lizards and birds. We're going to check them out. Let's have a look. So right here is an interpretive map kind of showing the outlay of the mounds throughout this park. And you'll see some of these are raised and some of these are cut flat. These cut flat ones are ones that have been destroyed in the past by farmers. They just plowed right over the Indian mounds. So these that are raised are the ones that are still remaining. You'll see these interesting shapes of lizards and birds and panthers, conical mounds, linear mounds. So we're going to get out there and have a look. This is so cool. Here's something I just find interesting, is look at this. In days of old, the 1800s and 1900s, it was just family activity. Let's put on our Sunday's best, go out to the mounds, get your shovels, dig in there and dig up bones. It's just some of that European supremacist thinking of it, the day and age, that other cultures were just inferior, and obviously they wouldn't want anyone digging in their cemeteries, but they didn't think of it that way back then. We've come a long way and we don't think that way, and we respect it. This is a sacred land, sacred site, and we're going to be real gentle as we walk around and observe this burial ground today. So right here is a little interpretive sign just showing a guesstimation of perhaps what these mounds signified to the indigenous peoples that built these. Kind of a multi-layered belief system on the upper world, the middle world, the lower world. Hey, look at this. This is the shape of a bird. You could see this long linear line that goes, and at the very end is the head, and then the wings that come off on the side. All throughout there, you see those raised areas. Those are all mounds out there. We're going to check them out. Here, this gives you a good idea of the height of the mounds. That's a good 4 feet up right there. If you look out there, you see how raised up they are. Some are 6 feet up. So this looks like a lizard one. You have the two sets of legs, the head, and then the long, long tail. So here's another animal here. You see the legs, you see the head, and they really made long, long tails with these mounds. Same with when they would do a bird. The wings would just extend out for hundreds of feet. And this was all without the use of shovels. They had simple tools. They scraped up with rocks. They had baskets that they weaved, and just back and forth, unloading dirt. Look at that giant mound back there. Think of the labor it took to build something like that, but it was very significant for them. It held the bones of their elders. Their series that they collected their bones all throughout the year, and then they'd have a special day to build these ceremonial sites, and they'd return to it again and again, and probably have some sort of a ceremony in remembrance of their lost family members. You can see even in this wooded area, the trees have just grown up through these mounds. The mounds are just intermittent. And I know there's quite a change in the thinking of archaeologists and museums these days. Of all the bones that have been collected through archaeological digs in the past are now being repatriated back to the original peoples. And it's hard to connect the peoples exactly. This goes back 800 to a couple thousand years ago, some of these mounds. But their ancestors are still around. Like in this state, it would be the Ho-Chunk Indians. So these are their elders. But it raises an interesting question. If for the sake of science and studying our ancestors, even studying like Neanderthals and ancient humans, how far back can you go where you say, you know what, those are my relatives, you should not have those bones? Like, where's the cutoff point? That's kind of tricky to trace your heritage back long enough where it's like hands off, don't dig, don't study these bones, but yet we want to learn about the past. We want to pull out DNA information. We want to find out what they ate, how long they lived, what their rituals were. Learning about the past helps us define our future. So I'd be curious to know from you guys, what do you think that statute of limitations should be for scientists to be hands off? We're not going to dig up these ancient sites and learn from them because it's just too fresh, too close to the people that are still alive today. Obviously, you wouldn't want anyone going into your loved one's cemetery and digging them up. I get that. But there's got to be a point where you say, you know, that's going back way too far. Take, for instance, I did a 23andMe test, and I have a lot of Neanderthal in me, like 2 to 3%. So, can I make a claim that don't you dare dig up Neanderthal bones and study them? They interbred with Homo sapiens, and I have some of their DNA, so that's sacred to me. That seems way too far back. We're talking 100,000 years ago. So, just a curious question. There's got to be some sort of statute of limitations where you say, okay, at this mark, it's okay to dig up. Oh, look at this long tail. Goes, goes, goes. Here's the body, there's the legs. Mound after mound after mound after mound. Like that interpretive center where we looked at that fake map of how they're spread out throughout this land. So I hope you enjoyed this. Another cool spot in my state. I just love to wander through here and think, what were these people like? The amount of effort it took, how tight their family bonds were to have these traditions, and how we're learning to respect them after all these years, after we've done so much destruction and devastation to these sacred sites. Just a handful of these mounds are left. There's used to be some 20,000 in my state. Now we got maybe 2,000 left. So, better late than never to go, you know what? We need this. We need these around. And it helps the ancestors of these people, the Ho-Chunk people, to be able to return to this site, to know their past, to cherish their past, to cherish their traditions, and to not have to have been so homogenized by European thinkers saying, you have to adopt our language, you have to adopt our traditions, we conquered you, so you need to let go of all that. Because we're a breadbasket of people. It's good that we can have diversity. Diversity is a strength. Variety is the spice of life. It's a good thing. It makes us stronger. Think of even with food, the great famine in Ireland, where they only had one species of potato, and then something came along, a bacteria, and wiped them all out. And then what did they have to eat? Diversity is always a strength, and so the more variety like this we have, the better. And it's good to reflect and to think about it. It makes life more full, more interesting. Look at this one. Long tail, 4 curved legs. I think this is a lizard right here. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed it. Bye. Hey, look at this piece of bark. See all those zigzag lines through there? That's all from insects underneath the bark. And they leave the mark on the trees, too. I just think it's beautiful. It's like artwork. Got a little chipmunk here going in and out of this tree. Right by this big Indian mound. Ooh, he's curious, too. Hey, look here. Something dug out the dirt here. Could be a fox, could be a groundhog. There's another one right over here too. Don't see any footprints. Wow, this one looks really fresh. You could see the leaves that were recently pulled up. That sand looks freshly scraped. I'm leaning towards woodchuck or groundhog. Woodchuck, groundhog, same thing, is probably making this. There's this ridge line here, and it's just all along it. What are you doing, little Napoleon? Are you eating out of the toilet, you silly boy? Look at, there's whole peanuts in there. Someone didn't chew their food. It's just like corn. Oh, you monster. What are you doing? Gotta flush it, buddy. Gotta flush it down. Okay, good night, buddy. Good night there, little guys. You got enough food out there? Lots of dog food, some peanuts out there for them. They should be set for the rest of the night. I'm going to bed. Good night, little guys.